Hello. Hey, welcome everybody. Hi, Eric Drake. What's happening? Okay, so welcome to our last live of the year. We're not quite sure what we're doing next year with the lives. We're in the midst of planning them. So thank you for joining me for the official last live of the year. I'm going to encourage you to put questions in the chat box. I see we already have a few questions and I'll dive into them in just a second. Some exciting updates that if you are struggling with erectile dysfunction, we have our new program that is out. It was just released on December 1st. So it is ready and people are signing up and enjoying that program. It's really, I'm very excited to be able to offer it. It's really a great program talking about how the brain becomes desensitized and what is necessary to resensitize it to improve arousal baseline, and then of course sexual arousal. So if that is something that you struggle with, please go over to my website, drtrishleigh.com. I have made it so that it's easier to navigate with just 3 tabs at the top. And we can dive in more to that once we get rolling here. So hello everybody. Hey Mohammed, how are you? Karan, if I'm saying that right, I see you have a few questions. We'll dive into yours in just a second. Zishan, I see you have a question. We're going to get there. Eric, thank you for your kind words. Okay, so as you keep joining me, please put your questions in. Let's dive in because we have a couple good ones here. So let me put this question from Karan. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Does brain processing speed increase or improve? The answer is yes. Of course it's yes. We can improve our brain performance, including processing speed, through the wonders of neuroplasticity, which means that we're pushing our brain in the right direction and we're not pulling it in the wrong direction. And I can expand upon that in a second. How much time does it take to improve brain processing speed after quitting masturbation? Time is only one factor, and I will talk about that, but I want you to recognize it as one piece to the puzzle. What can I do to de-stress myself when my brain wants it? You know, this is a big, complex issue. This isn't a shallow issue. This is a deep end issue, and there's many working parts. So let me explain to you real quick that your brain processing speed can improve, meaning that it's using less of the speeds in the extreme, too fast or too slow. If your brain's running too fast, too slow, you'll feel the need to self-soothe and stimulate simultaneously. So as you heal your brain and you stay out of the screen and you stay away from masturbation, your brain's processing speed will come back to the middle, which is the speed for calm focus. Now, time's only one factor in that equation. And I've been telling people this for a really long time in terms of head injury. And this is a little different, but you know, when someone sustains a head injury, they're told to go home and wait for their brain to come back online. Time is necessary, but moving your brain in the right direction is really, really important. So what you do during that time is crucial. So here's some advice. What not to do first. What not to do is to become really aware of where in your behaviors, mentally or physically, you are going towards and still getting high levels of dopamine. Masturbation may be one of them. Fantasy ends up being the last thing that sticks around for people. You do not want to give your brain excessively high levels of dopamine because that will keep your brain in that slower processing speed, in that dysregulated, dysfunctional pattern. The what to do is, number one, you can do brain training. And I'm going to find the brain training headband link from my website. I do not sell it directly. I'm sure it's on even deeper sale during the holiday time. I'm putting it out there for you right now. You can train your brain with technology. So this is technology. You can just put your questions right in here, Francesco. Put it right in the box and I'll answer them. You can train your brain with technology to heal in the right direction. And of course, it's like a workout for your brain. It doesn't put anything into your brain. It's just like if you want to get a stronger body, you have to eat well, which means you stop eating junk food and you start eating healthier items and you work out. You move your body intentionally. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about using your brain intentionally in your life, giving it a workout and making sure you're not going back to high levels of dopamine, the junk food, in any way. And how you can de-stress yourself when your brain wants it. Your brain is looking for dopamine. So go find dopamine in your life. That's why I always tell people to get on purpose in your work, your relationships, and your hobbies. So one activity you can do is think of what is the most exciting and exhilarating and healthy activity that you like to do in your life, because that's going to be the most dopamine producing. So you hear me talk, I have a boxing bag. I like to box. When I box, I'm flooding my system with healthy amounts of dopamine at higher levels than when I'm just sitting around. That's a healthy dopamine producing activity. Figure that out for yourself, and that will really help. Okay, so let me just cruise back here and see just make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. Zishan puts a question about jaw pain, brain heat, like it's frying on the right side in particular, body ache, anhedonia, it's flatline, also PIED. So what that means is, now, I don't know if that means that you are in the midst of staying out of the screen. Likely, if you're experiencing flatline, what happens is your brain is used to getting these high levels of dopamine from porn and masturbation. Now, you don't give your brain that. That's your brain's medicine, essentially. You don't give it that. So now what's going to happen is there's a dopamine deficit in your life, plus you're going to have cortisol spikes. And from an electrical energy standpoint, your brain's going to go deeper into that dysregulated pattern I'm calling strained brain, too much fast, too much slow. What that's going to do is it'll give you more pain. It'll make your brain hurt because your brain is unwiring right now. So the good part is the pain and the aches and the anhedonia comes from not getting the high levels of dopamine in an artificial way. So now you're in a dopamine deficit and it's difficult to feel. And that's one reason. That is one reason. And also, if you're in this strained brain, you'll have PIED. What's even more likely for you in this description is that your brain has tipped into what I'm calling drained brain now. So instead of being out in the extremes, it's that medium speed of alpha, but it's artificially super high. And what that can do is it can leave you in this place for longer than you want to be. The solution is still the same. Get dopamine from your life. Use the brain training headband to rewire your brain back to healthy levels and to make sure you're not desensitizing your brain, because essentially that's what erectile dysfunction comes from. It comes from hypoarousal, or it can also be the combination with hyperarousal, which is the opposite. Hypo and hyperarousal are in the extremes. It's not healthy arousal. Okay, so hopefully that helps you. Flavius, what's going on? Let's see. So how can I control my attention? Almost 1 year of no fap, but still checking women out all the time. That is your brain looking for dopamine hits. So controlling that is one way of, that's your defensive strategy. Your offensive strategy is to get healthy dopamine from your life while you stop doing that. So you're gonna have to put some rails on so that you don't allow yourself to do that. And then you reward yourself by giving yourself healthy dopamine in your life. We know checking out or lusting is your brain looking for dopamine. And you can't do it or you're going to reinforce those old pathways. So we want those pathways to die off while you are firing up those pathways for dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin in your life. That's the happiness trifecta. So it's not necessarily rocket science, but it necessitates commitment and discipline in not eating the junk food in any way. And this is low key junk food, and making sure you have healthy eating habits, right? You're getting dopamine from healthy sources and you're giving your brain a workout. And that's where the headband comes into play. Corey, yes, you do, my friend. You need to get off of all social media if it keeps leading you back, because that is the junk food in at its finest. Okay, so So is 77-year-old considered normal? I would say no, that is not normal. And I work with people that are in their 70s. I work with people that are in their 80s. And I was joking yesterday with a gentleman. Everybody who's up there towards, later 70s and 80s always thinks they're the oldest person that I work with. I work with a gentleman who's 87, who he did struggle with erectile dysfunction and no longer does. So this would be the factor to consider, that if you struggle with erectile dysfunction in your whatever age, but you are not involved in a what I call the 4D cycle of hypersexuality. So you're not going for high levels of dopamine at any sexual media or any sexual source. So if you're not doing that, then there may be, something physiological, and you definitely should go to your doctor to have that checked out. But if hypersexuality, porn, sexual media, any acting out behaviors are involved, that is absolutely a factor. And that has to be controlled. And when you control that, you will find that arousal function in your brain can be healed, and you will have greater levels of sexual arousal. That is just the way that it goes. So if porn and masturbation and sexual media is not a factor for you, then, possibly there's something due to aging. But if it is a factor, then it needs to be addressed. Okay, let's see. We have Zule092. Thank you. I am trying to help the world one brain at a time. So I'm very glad that you're here, and I'm very glad that my videos are helping you. They're intended. I'm on a mission to help people realize that your brains can be in a better place and your life will be in a better place. Meditating, seriously, it's been really helpful when it comes to urges. Yeah, for sure. Congratulations, first of all, on your 3 weeks. Meditation is such a key. And this has been something that I have been thinking about lately, because the science on porn use says that people use it for stress reduction and to offset boredom. And that's really set with me lately, because nobody in this day and age has been bored in about 30 years. Am I right? And the reason being is overstimulation has taken over. Everybody's so overstimulated because they have their phones and their technology constantly. So then if they sit around for a second without massive amounts of stimulation, they think they're bored. That's not boredom. That's just lack of overstimulation. So when you start meditating, you're going to start teaching your brain to feel good again without overstimulation. It's incredibly important. And so meditation is a key. And in my 90-day program, I teach people some simple meditation techniques. It's part of my formula. At the same time, the brain training headband that I already put up in the chat box, that'll take your meditation practice to the next level, because it will be giving you feedback on what's actually happening in your brain performance when you're meditating. And I encourage people to do both of those things. Have a meditation practice, but also train your brain, because what has happened to me in the past is you'll be able to get so far in your meditation, calm your brain down a bit, but if you know what your brain is doing, you'll be able to get even further. So keep rocking it out. And yes, it'll be really helpful for urges. So thanks for joining me. Okay, been struggling. Hey, Kennel, what's happening? Been struggling with overuse of phone and apps and eating junk food after quitting porn. So this is swapping out one high level dopamine habit for 2 others. And so, you know what? Habit replacement is okay in the meantime, but I don't want anybody getting a sugar addiction, and nor do I want you to be, now caught up in all these other apps in your phone. So I encourage you to look at it as you are on your way on your journey. And this is a journey. This isn't an event. Like quitting porn isn't an event that happens overnight. What it is you are making steps in the right direction. So now reduction of junk food and reduction of phone screen time in general is the next step for you. And perhaps taking one of them instead of both of them at the same time can really keep moving you forward. Swap out some of that junk food for a little bit healthier alternatives. So if it's chocolate, you've heard me say this before, dark chocolate is better for you. I've become low-key addicted to these JoJo's chocolate that I get at Costco. They are delish. And, I just have a little bit of it. Or like instead of chips, they make those, they're still in a crinkly bag, but they're made out of rice and black beans, and they're, relatively healthy, but they have the essence of chip to it. Something like that. Yep, essence of chip. So something like that might help you, and take it baby steps, keep moving in the right direction, one day at a time. Yes, being unfulfilled. Hugo Maria, if I said it right, Hugo Maria Pablo. Hello, welcome. Oh, potential spam's calling me. We'll let them know I can't talk right now. Yes, so a really big part of this formula takes courage to go, this is what I want in my life, and I'm going to go out of my way to create it. And, since the beginning, I've been talking about this being on purpose in your work, in your relationships, and in your hobbies. So if you're going to spend all your time working because we all need to earn to stay alive, I want you to find a job that you can be fulfilled in. And I know that can be a bigger process than quitting the job you're in right now and just taking a new one. But this is what I know, because I've helped lots of people get out of a job that they don't like and get into one that they do. The minute you start thinking and training or Googling the new thing that you want to put yourself into, it becomes the thing that your brain wants to go back to for dopamine instead of PMO. So let's just say right now you work at the grocery store, but you want to be a horse trainer. So you go on Google and you're like, what do I need to do to be a horse trainer? Now you're going to get dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin from looking for that next new position. And even if it takes you 3 years, it will help you to transition into the purpose and the job that you want, which will help you stay out of the screen. So, a first step would be, what do you really want to do? Figure it out, and then start figuring out how you can actually make it happen. And when an excuse comes to your mind, there are no excuses. Everything can be done. And when I coach people who are looking to do this, what I ask them to do is to think about their passions, and then I help them figure out, but you can do this yourself. Figure out how you can monetize your passion. So, my passion is helping people live their best life and to come out of the screen to do it. And I get to spend all my time doing that, helping people, because I've intentionally created that. That's what I want for you. So go for it, my friend. You got this. Uh, let's see. What do we got? Hey, Jakar, what's happening? You're welcome. I'm very glad to be here. How long is Flatline? It goes back to the other answer that I already gave if you were here. It's not just about time, it's about time and what you do. So double down on getting dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Those are the neurotransmitters that they call the happiness trifecta. Find ways to get it from your life by doing the things that you find enjoyable in your life. And that is one step that can help you shave off the time, because flatline is from a dopamine deficit. So when you start to rewire the system, that will be shorter. And getting the brain training headband that I put up there, if you use my link, you always get the best pricing. I don't sell it, it goes through to the company's website, but you get the best pricing, and that'll totally help you out. Okay. Let me see. So I don't, Joel, Eric, Paul, I'm looking at your question, but I'm going to have to think about that. And I'm not totally sure how to answer it. So I'm going to move on. I will come back to that because it's a very specific question. Okay. Let me see. So studying when my brain wants it at the time, I can't just go and do such an activity. Low level dopamine source. Karan, do some push-ups, my friend. You can do push-ups to exhaustion. I know you might not want to, but do it. It will dump some dopamine and all the positive neurotransmitters and hormones into your system, and it'll offset cortisol, it'll charge up the electrical energy, it'll get the blood flowing, and everybody can do it in any space that they have. Basically, that is your solution. Corey, how's it going? Yep, I feel you on the chocolate. How bad is using poppers? Bad. So let's stay away from that. That's an opinion statement. This is a good question. So, hey, 3 and 3s. No romantic prospects. So, no romantic prospects. The first question is, do you want a romantic prospect? Assuming the answer is yes, then the solution is to build, well, it's actually, again, it's complex, it's not simple. So it's about intimacy. If you're still going into porn, masturbation, and PMO, basically, then your brain is going to continue to want to go back in that direction. And then what happens is all romantic prospects are worse. They seem worse for you. So if you're caught up in the cycle, it will be difficult for you to be able to move in the direction of romantic prospects. But if you can get a handle on that, then, it's going to be rosier in the human being department. And then building intimacy and learning to connect with people on a person to person soul level can be really important, because when you're caught up in PMO, it's about objectification, it's about pleasure, and it creates the narcissistic bubble. You look at other people for what they can do for you. A whole framework shift is necessary to be able to move into, building relationships with romantic prospects. I've helped lots of people do this in my coaching practice, and it's about getting out there where there's like-minded people, where there are prospects. It's about getting your brain in the place where these prospects, now you're not looking at them like they're pieces of meat that are prospects. You're looking at them as a breadth of human beings that you're going to connect with in a human level, and then out of that comes a prospect. So it's a framework shift too. Karan, my friend, you've got some really great questions today. How to resensitize the reward center. Number one, stop desensitizing it. Figure out all the dopamine sexual activities you're doing that are desensitizing it, and you have to stop. That's the hardest part for people. And it goes back to the weight loss. You want to lose weight, number one thing you can do is stop eating junk food. My husband's sister called a little while ago, and if you've met my husband, he can be brutally honest. He's an 8, by the way. So she tells him that she's been gaining weight. It's probably a hormonal thing. She's going to go to the doctors, have her hormones checked. And then he's like, well, what's going on? She just got back from Paris, where she ate, drank, and was merry nonstop. So my husband's like, if I put you on a desert island, you would lose weight. The same thing here. If we put you on a desert island, your brain would start to resensitize, because there would be no chance of desensitization. That's number one. And then the resensitizing comes from getting dopamine from your life again. You have to stop desensitizing, find lower levels of dopamine, and do them consistently. So for example, one person I work with started to play ice hockey on Wednesdays, loved it, made him feel so good, started to play ice hockey on Saturdays too. So find that thing, that passion that makes you feel good, and go do it, and do as many of them. Build a toolbox of as many of them as humanly possible in your life, work, relationships, hobbies. And that is how you resensitize. Let me see here. Okay, this is a great question too. What's characterized as porn, and what would you avoid during NoFap? So what is characterized as porn is everything in the whole world exists on a continuum, and so does sexual media and sexual acting out. So I'm just going to call it hypersexuality instead of just porn. And actually, in the new ED program, if you weren't here at the beginning, I have a new ED program, 3 Steps to Heal ED at Home. It's a lower price point than my big 90-day program, but it is filled with what you need to resensitize your brain. In that program, I don't talk about porn. I talk about all the hypersexuality behaviors that you might be engaging in, and also all the screen-based activities you might be engaging in on a continuum. So the continuum holds actual porn on porn websites, social media that's being used for a sexual reason. Especially if you're trying to stay out of porn sites, you will recognize when it starts to get dicey and weird, and you're going on YouTube to watch yoga videos, even though you're not there for yoga, you're there for a dopamine hit from hypersexuality. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. It's like too much sexuality for mood regulation, and you're looking for that. You can look for that in magazines, you can look for that in catalogs, you can look for that on seemingly harmless websites that you wouldn't characterize as sexual, but you're using it for the dopamine hit. Same thing with excessive screen time, like we just answered that question. Same thing from excessive food. That if you look, there's a hashtag for food porn. You can turn anything into kind of that high dopamine, but especially sexuality. And then if you're acting out with other people, hookup culture, dating apps, that's definitely in this continuum of hypersexuality. Because people will tell me all the time, I haven't watched porn in 3 years. They still have erectile dysfunction. And I'm like, well, what's going on in the hypersexuality department? And then I'll find it. It's something, it's in there. Fantasy. Fantasy is definitely considered part of this porn continuum. It's usually the last thing to go. Euphoric recall, even just recalling partners you've been with in the past, experiences you've had in the past. So it runs the gamut and it should all be avoided, because anytime you even think about fantasy, you're firing up those neural pathways. And we want them to die off so we can build these new ones over here. So you have to be really, really cognizant of it. Let me see. Yeah, CocaCola, I'm reading your comment. And basically, finding your true authentic self is the key to breaking addiction. And that's exactly what I teach in my 90-day program. The whole program is designed to teach you to find your true authentic self and to have the courage to be that version. And man, it's tricky to have the courage to be that version, because I'm constantly trying to do it. And even though I'm good at practicing the things that you need to do, every time the quote unquote opportunity comes for me to be able to go, oh my gosh, I got to show up and be my true authentic self. An easy example, which is so simple that has happened this week, is that my best friend loves to be busy all the time. And I just like to have much more downtime. And I have a full life because of the number of kids and all the things I have going on. So she is having a bunco game. I don't even know what bunco is. Apparently, you need 12 people to play. She's like, can you come play bunco? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. She's like, please, can you come? And I'm like, I literally don't want to learn how to play a new game that involves 12 people for sure. I'm like, why would a game have 12 people? Because it's fun. I'm like, I don't want to see 12 people within a day, never mind all at one game. So, like, staying true to my authentic self, I said no, which is like, I feel like I'm going to let her down because she needs a 12th player. But, staying true to my authentic self, I want to be able to chill on Thursday night because I'll go into a busy weekend. And, I can barely make it there in time. So it's like honoring her needs over mine, and I've learned to honor mine, even though it'll disappoint people. That is the secret sauce right there. It really is. Hey, Jakar, thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Any donations that anybody makes in this live, I donate towards the nonprofit organization that I have founded, pornbrainprevention.org. And that is a nonprofit that is designed to help kids and teens never start watching porn so they don't have to ever be in a porn brain rewire. We're going upstream to help the next gen, which is going to be in worse shape than this generation. So we're going to try to stop that bleeding before it starts. We know already the reason I made the erectile dysfunction program is there's so many people in their 20s that already have erectile dysfunction. Going back to the question about a 77-year-old, this is really at the root of it. And erectile dysfunction disrupts your mental health and relationships. It has the ability to take out more than just you, to take out, families. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Okay, let me see here. I'm going down. Jude, after a flatline, is sex an option? Yes, absolutely. So let's heal your brain. Let's get it resensitized. And, like I always joke, I want you to get on purpose and get back to having some great sex with your honey, relational sex that is feed your soul, not just your need for pleasure. So that is absolutely. And in the erectile dysfunction program, I teach people how to, as you're feeling your brain resensitize, how to practice that. And to practice makes perfect, right? So when you begin to practice healthy sexuality, you will bring flatline to a close earlier. And it is difficult if you don't have a partner. That's why staying out of the desensitization to be able to move towards that really is important. Um, Angelo, does porn cause erectile dysfunction? Yes, 100% yes. And in that new program that I made, it's on my website under the tab now at the top that says erectile dysfunction. It's called 3 Steps to Heal Erectile Dysfunction. I explain to you all the ways why it does. But the one-liner version is that porn changes the way that your brain uses electrical energy. We know that. And I've now seen it in hundreds of brains. It creates strained brain or drained brain. And if you don't know what I mean by that, as part of my work, I use EEG, which is electroencephalogram. If you want to work with me personally, the first step is a QEEG brain map. In that brain map assessment, I can totally see how your brain is performing in all areas and many, many parameters. I can see if your brain's in strained brain or drained brain. They cause erectile dysfunction. When that electrical energy pattern is changed, it changes the way that neurotransmitters and hormones cascade. It also changes the way that the energy flows down your spinal cord into your peripheral nerves, into your genitalia, which impacts blood flow. It impacts muscles, and it impacts the way that the electrical energy sends the signals through your cells. That it's a top down problem, and I explain it all in that program. So the answer is a resounding yes. And you're right, it's the low dopamine levels. It's actually not low dopamine levels, it's low dopamine in your life with excessively high dopamine from sexual activities. So now what I call it is you have an arousal gap in your brain. If you watch porn, it's a level 15. Now you're trying to be with your partner. And I always joke, on a good day, she's probably a 9. On a very good day, if she lives a busy life, she might be a 6. If she's upset with you about watching porn, she might be a 4 or a 3. So now let's just say you're used to 15 and she's a 5. You have a 10-point spread in the arousal gap of being with your partner than what you would get out of a hypersexual, highly sexual activity. So it's that it's arousal gap in your brain. No. Jack Thacker, no. We know from science that even watching it sometimes, there is something, a transcription factor, that even if you watch it very sparingly, it will basically fire up those neural pathways, and make it so that some people will go back to square one in terms of this pattern and this cycle, but it is not a good idea. Carl, I didn't mean to skip your comment. I'm trying to be okay, Carl. I am going back up. I see no comment, Carl. Carl, I'm cruising back up, my friend. I do not see a comment from you. So I did not intentionally skip it. I still don't see it. Carl, hit me with it again, my friend, and I will I'll get to it. Okay, why is it okay? So what time is it? 2:03. We're going to go to 2:15, just so you know. So Carl, get that comment in. I'm going to start to go down them pretty quick. Does porn affect your focus? Absolutely. Let's see what else we got. Why is it difficult to remember things and to think effectively? It's because when your brain is using hypo or hyper arousal, it impacts focus. We know that the frontal lobe, which is for focus and thinking and executive function, is impacted, meaning it's running too slow, which will trash your ability. And I started talking about it as your ability to think. I started talking about it as porn induced ADHD. When it comes to DE and PE, again, timing isn't the thing that we need to be particularly worried about in terms of lasting, because that's performance focused. This should be experience focused. And thinking about a sexual experience as a sexual performance that's supposed to fall out in a particular way, that is the influence of porn. That when you've been influenced by it, you might not even know you've been influenced by it. So it's about being able to do the opposite of what porn does. You want to build arousal over time. That's not a thing in most porn. Build arousal with your partner over time. Be able to feel heightened arousal, and then be able to, have the back and forth of relational sex and be able to culminate. Timing isn't the issue. It's about your ability to be able to stay in it and enjoy it as an experience. So with delayed ejaculation, what will happen is you can't get enough arousal over time and you can't get there. That comes from a desensitized brain. This is also in the ED program that I just made. There's a lesson on DE and PE. and there's diagrams of why it happens in terms of dopamine and things like that. We know when it comes to PE, what happens is it's actually the baseline is the opposite. So you're at a heightened baseline and a hyper arousal state. And so then when you are aroused, you very quickly go over the edge. And both of them are dysfunctional brain patterns, and they are dysregulated in terms of baseline arousal. So when you heal your baseline arousal, tonic dopamine levels, baseline, how it is in your general life, then when you have a phasic spike, when you find something pleasurable, it can spike in a healthy way instead of not spiking enough in DE or spiking too fast in PE. It goes back to everything that I've been talking about here. DC, how can healing your inner child's stress and boredom affect getting away from triggers? Well, I already told you boredom's probably not the thing. It's probably overstimulation and lack of overstimulation, calming your brain down so that you can sit around and chill and not be bored. That is very important. And your inner child's stress, there's some strategies. They're in the 90-day program that I offer, but going back and kind of thinking about what those stressors are. I'll give you one example here of an exercise. I think it's pretty cool, actually, is that you think of the things that are challenging, that were challenging for you, and nobody helped you through them, as there was no parent to help you, because generally you had these stressors and they emotionally dysregulated you, and then there was nobody there to help you emotionally regulate. And you know how I know this? Because I do this on a daily, minute to minute basis. Here's someone coming. On a minute to minute basis, I'm growing my young adult children into adults. So I'm there to help them emotionally regulate, to bridge the gap. You can do that for yourself. It's reparenting your inner child, thinking about what those stressors are and going back to think about how you would help yourself back then. And then especially demonstrating it in the present. It's hugely important. I told you last time we were here that I went and visited my family of origin, my family, and my ability to regulate and interact and communicate and stay calm was amazing. Like thinking about how I would have been a decade ago when I still lived there. So it's get used to being in a world with less stimulation would be really important. And then, figure out how to help that child and then help him show up as his authentic self. Corey, when it comes to Peyronie's disease, that can have to do with physiological aspects. So you definitely want to talk to your doctor about that. But again, going back to what I said before, is that if you're having erection problems and porn and hypersexuality are in the mix, it definitely makes Peyronie's disease worse. So this is going to change the way your brain is operating. And I'll give you an example from a gentleman who's in my program. He's like, I am blown away at how he has all these physical problems he's had for a long time. And he's like, they are basically down to nothing. He didn't know. And he told me, he's like, you should tell people this. And I'm like, I do tell people this. They just can't hear it until their brains are clearer. Is that your physical problems, you will feel better when your brain works better, because pain and dysfunction in the body is impacted by dysfunction in the brain. So if you do need to stop the porn. And when you do, your Peyronie's disease is going to be better. You're going to be in better shape. And then again, going back to epigenetics, like because you have something going on, you can transcend that and you can feel and perform well, even though you have a thing going on. Antidepressants lower the power in the system and make it so that you are less interested in sex and your sexual arousal is kind of decreased. They do not regulate your brain, they just dampen. So it will kind of take the edge off of arousal, and it can make you feel less sexual. Childhood traumatic experiences. So I've already kind of talked about that. If you have trauma in the past, you do want to get a trauma therapist or work with a professional to, work through. If you have memory flashes, Joel, you want to work through those memory flashes so that you can process and integrate the experiences to be able to get to the other side of them, because trauma locks up the brain in a neurorigid pattern, and that is the opposite of neuroplasticity. So you really do want to work through those experiences, get to the other side. And as challenging as it is, it's always about forgiveness. It's about forgiving the person who's wronged you. And I've had to do it, so I know it's not easy, but I do know It's powerful. When a person has traumatized you, sometimes they don't even know they did it. And other times they're wounded people who do it because they are wounded. Hurt people is the saying. And when you can forgive them and forgive yourself for some things you've done in the past, forgiveness is the key to move forward. Okay, so let's see. David's question about rush or poppers. So they are going to hyper stimulate the system and again create more hyper arousal. It's not going to regulate the system, it's going to dysregulate the system, which is going to make all of this worse. Okay. Oh, thank you, Israeli dairy farmer. Such a lovely question. Thank you. I appreciate being part of your journey, and thank you for sharing this because it really means the world to me because I'm trying to show up and be here for you. So thank you for that. Let's see. CocaCola, false assumptions. Okay, when we then extend false assumptions as what means what? And create rules. If we violate these rules, we feel horrible. These rules box us in since people don't understand. I don't know if that comes from another comment, but that's totally true. Like extending yourself grace in this journey, boxing yourself in by other people's rules and your own rules, there are some rules you should have, but they also have to have flexibility and to make sure you're moving forward. So grace is an important piece. Should I just tell people to quit some meds in order to justify? Okay, I got to put this up. Zule092, you don't have to justify anything to anybody. So don't lie. Do not lie, because I never lie. And my husband jokes with me, that's my greatest lie. And I'm like, no, that's not. You want to stay in integrity always. If you stay in integrity, you can always hold your head high. People don't need to know why you're different. You tell them you're working on yourself and you're super glad with the results. Done and done. You don't owe anybody an explanation. And learning to not give an explanation is a huge growth opportunity for you. This is evolution, my friend, and you have to get used to thinking and behaving and performing in a new way. You're leveling up. And when you level up, people up at the top, they don't justify what they're doing to anybody else. And don't get me wrong, I've had to learn this one myself, and I'm continuing to learn it. Going back to the bunko story, I didn't justify it. No, I can't make it. I've done it a couple times lately, and I'm like, this feels weird and off, and I feel bad. And I'm like, I don't owe anybody a justification for honoring my needs over anybody else's. Same goes for you. Yes, your thinking and memory will improve after abstaining. Leak, DAG, dog. Okay, Freak Show Kina, moving in the right direction. Time no talk, my friend. You and I used to be connected quite often, so I'm glad you're here. So, okay, so let's see. Recovery time, been clean for 4 months, and my mind has improved a lot from nearly a 30. I got to put it up. Congratulations, my friend. You are a lion in this journey for sure. So mind has improved a lot, and that's from nearly 30 years of an addiction, hour a day, 7 days a week. You rock. You are crushing this. So keep moving in the right direction. Yeah, congratulations is right. I don't know if there's any, no, I don't think there's any emojis or anything in here that I can use, but congratulations. That's amazing. Okay, I'm going to cruise down so I can see what I've got here because I have to wrap up in a minute. Have to stay on check here. Carl, Carl must have bounced because I don't see. Let's see. I'm just cruising through to see. I know no honey whatsoever, never had one. Being really intentional about that can help, but you have to heal your brain first. Strain brain is what I call when your brain is, I was calling it pendulum brain for a long time, but I think strain brain communicates it a little bit better. It's when your brain's using too much fast speed and too much slow speed all at the same time. I talk about it a lot in most of my videos, pendulum brain or strain brain. How can you get over a facial feature fetish? Constantly triggered in public. I already talked about how not to give in to those dopamine calls for dopamine hits. So when it comes to a fetish, that is something that is, highly arousing for you. Okay, so I'm gonna have to wrap it up. I'm just cruising down to see. No. Oh, Carl. Okay, Carl. I can end on Carl's question, and I can feel better about my life, so I didn't stiff him. And I see there's another part, but we're gonna answer this. Okay. Hey, Carl. I'm so glad that I found this. It was at the very beginning. Okay. Does masturbating with a partner in real life sexual interactions without fantasy still have negative effects on the brain? Very good question. So, if let's think about a sexual experience like a meal, if you're willing to go there with me. Okay. So you have your plate and it's got like roast beef, mashed potatoes, corn, and peas. You want to spend time eating the whole plate. You don't want to spend all of your time just eating all the corn. That's what I think about masturbation within a sexual experience. If it becomes that all you're focused on is eating the corn, is that's the thing you want to go back to, and you have to watch this yourself. That is you going back to a higher level physically stimulating activity that you've been doing by yourself for a long time, which is why it's become more highly arousing in your arousal template. If you keep going back to it all the time, you are going to reinforce those pathways, which we don't want to keep reinforcing the pathways back to masturbation. We want it to be part of the plate of the healthy, the healthy big Friday night meal. So like it's okay with your partner, and especially if it becomes a shared experience, and especially if you're not doing it in a secret way anymore, but just watch it as part of the whole meal. Make sure it doesn't become the main course. And the second part is fantasy still, bad? I try not to use the words bad or good. It's healthy or unhealthy. So what if it's fantasy of healthy sexual experiences that wouldn't only be firing up healthy pathways? Yes and no, because the no part is if you're constantly firing up pathways for fantasy, you are reinforcing sexual thoughts that aren't the experience. So that's like you sitting around thinking about the best meal that you've ever had. Like you don't want to reinforce pathways, the thoughts about an experience. You should be reinforcing the pathways towards that experience. And unfortunately, in this situation, like the more you reinforce the pathways towards the thought, it can impact the experience, where the experience lets you down because you keep firing up the thoughts. So, again, like the way I think about fantasy is if you're using that as foreplay towards an experience, that can be a really healthy part of it. But if you're using it for dopamine hits outside of a healthy sexual relationship, you're going to keep firing yourself back up in the wrong direction, and likely it'll become a slippery slope behavior. Okay, sorry, I have to wrap up. I'm trying to keep myself. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a beautiful holiday season. I'm just cruising. Oh, Waffleton, thank you so much for the super sticker. I'm going to donate that in your honor on your behalf. I really appreciate that. No, I don't use Discord. Okay, Carl, awesome. I'm glad I was able to answer your question. It's helpful. Thank you again, everybody, for joining me. I hope you have an amazing holiday season, and I'll let y'all know what we're doing in the new year because we're going to get some cool things going in terms of I'm going to hire a marketing person. So if you know any great dedicated marketing people, because I want to create a really nice marketing's the wrong word. It's more like public relations and being able to get into a really nice rhythm that someone else is helping me so we can show up in even more powerful ways for you. So I hope you all have a great day. Thanks again for joining me. And if you're interested in more help, go over to my website, drtrishleigh.com. Check everything out there and have a beautiful day. Thanks, everybody.